state has already tried to require its citizens to show proof of citizenship before registering to vote, and it did not work out very well. I'm a lawyer in real life. I don't play one on television. This week, the Senate is going to be taking up the SAVE Act. It is an attempt by Donald Trump to restrict voting in the United States. And I am going to tell you what happened in Kansas when they tried this. I think we can all agree that Kansas is a very white state and it's a pretty small state. Now, those are just facts. Those are just numbers. And I say that because when you hear who was affected and how they were affected, you will understand why this law is going to have wide-ranging negative effects on so many people in our country if it were to pass. Kansas passed this law in 2012 and it was to go in effect in 2013. Between 1999 and 2013, there were only 39 documented cases of a non-citizen registering to vote in the state of Kansas. That represented 0.002% of all registered voters in Kansas, a very tiny, insignificant amount. Remember, when you go to register to vote, you have to attest under oath, subject to criminal penalties, that you are in fact a U.S. citizen. Like Kansas, nationwide, non-citizens registering to vote is not an issue. It does not happen very often. Let's talk about how this law affected people in Kansas. This man was the named plaintiff. He had a copy of his birth certificate that he provided to the elections official. He was not allowed to register to vote because that document did not have a certified seal on it. He only had a copy of his birth certificate because he had been born on an Air Force base in Illinois. That Air Force base closed in the 1990s, and he has no idea where he can get a certified copy of his birth certificate. One of the other plaintiffs who was part of this lawsuit was a U.S. veteran. He had been in the military for over 13 years. He went to register to vote. He didn't have a birth certificate. He didn't have other proof that he was a U.S. citizen, and he was denied the right to register and vote. Another one of the plaintiffs was a woman who had been born in Maryland. She would have to pay to get a copy of her birth certificate. She didn't have the financial means to do so, therefore she was not able to register to vote. The other people in the Kansas case did provide proof of citizenship, but those documents were denied by the clerks and they were unable to register. I have read the bill that the Senate is going to be debating this week. This bill is going to make it extremely difficult for a lot of Americans to register to vote, especially women, because it requires you to have a passport or a copy of your birth certificate. If your birth certificate has a name that is different from your current name, you are going to have difficulty registering to vote. This is not a drill. We already know what happens when they enforce this. We know what happened in little old white Kansas when it happened. So imagine what is going to happen across the other 49 states when they try to implement this. I know that there are a lot of you who don't care about these things until it affects you, but Kansas should tell you that it can affect you. So you should be concerned about it now. You should be calling your senators. You should be objecting to this. You don't want to F around and find out. You want to stop this now because Kansas has already shown us that this is a bad bill. Now Donald Trump thinks this is just going to affect brown voters and people he thinks will not support him, but Kansas proves that this can affect a lot of white rural voters. So imagine in a state like Georgia where you have a sizable number of rural voters, 5 to 10% of those voters are unable to provide the documentary proof that they are citizens. That could tip elections in states like Georgia. Please let me know in the comments what you're going to do to try to stop this bill from being enacted.